Now, earlier on in the show, I mentioned that one of the cleverest tricks the controlling hand had ever pulled was to convince the people that they were free, to grant the people the illusion of freedom. This was one of their greatest scams. And this was very clever the way this was done, because by appearing to grant people the freedom that they already have as natural human beings, what they actually did was put in place a mechanism which allowed all of these freedoms to be taken away. And this was done through the introduction of the American Constitution. Now, anybody who reads the American Constitution is going to read this thing, and if they take it to heart, they're going to say, well, this is a beautiful document. And it is a beautiful document. But what makes the document so beautiful is because what it does is it outlines the freedoms that we as human beings all naturally have, simply by being alive on this planet. We all have these inalienable freedoms and these inalienable rights as human beings. The Constitution of the United States lists all of these rights and all of these attributes of humanity. But the action of doing this needs to be put clearly into perspective, because by listing all of these attributes of humanity on a document that has been used to found a nation, it also does something else that is very significant. In regards to the United States Constitution, as I mentioned before the break, the rights that are listed on the United States Constitution are in fact our inalienable human rights. They are the rights that we all possess as human beings on this planet. Now, this makes the United States Constitution a beautiful document, because we look at this document and it rings true inside us. It rings true to the depths of who we are. We read this stuff and we go, yes, that's the way it should be. And the fact is that it's not just the way it should be, but it's the way it is. Because the rights that are listed in the United States Constitution are the rights that we all have as natural human beings on this planet. But the trick with the US Constitution is that it lists all of these rights on a piece of paper, and it packages the whole idea to humanity that these rights were obtained through war and that they have been granted to the people by government. Now, making these inalienable human rights appear as if they've been granted to the people by government, this gives the government the ability to slowly remove all of these rights from the people. So that's the trick. We don't actually need a constitution as such. All we need to do is understand the connection that we each hold to each other as people, as human beings on this planet. We need to embrace that connection, do the right thing by each other in all that we do. That's all we need. We don't need to have any of these rights listed. We already know we have these rights. We just have to acknowledge to ourselves and to each other that we do have these rights. These rights cannot be taken from us. It's impossible for the rights of the people to be taken from the people. The only thing that is actually possible is for the people to relinquish those rights. That's what's happening. The problem isn't just that those in control of our governments are introducing legislation to take these rights, because the problem is also that we the people are allowing them to do so. We the people are relinquishing these rights. And that is where the real problem lies. That's what I've been trying to wake people up to. The main tools that are being used to remove these rights from the people are terrorism and the threat of climate change. And both of these threats against humanity have been manufactured. Both of them are completely orchestrated. The thing that gets the people to comply with this type of ridiculous legislation, the type of propaganda that's presented to people as the war on terror and as climate change, what gets people to go along with this is television. They simply tell you what's going on television, and everyone believes it. Very few people ever go and look at the stories presented to them by the TV for themselves. Very few people ever go and check the data, check the numbers, check the facts for themselves. Those that do start shouting out to the people, hey, wake up, the emperor's got no clothes. But most of the people simply say, well, if what you're saying was true, it would be reported on the television. The people actually think the television is there to inform them. But that is not the job of the television. The television has nothing to do with keeping people informed. The purpose that television serves is to mould the opinions and the belief structures of the population. It's a tool of propaganda. It's the greatest hypnotist that ever was. It keeps the population in a misinformed, naive bubble, and it gives them an utterly false perception of reality. And this is exactly what television was designed to do. It could be used for exactly the opposite purpose, but unfortunately it's not. It's used to distract people. And they see the people in these magazines and on television as celebrities, something to admire. Oh, she's so beautiful, oh, she's so smart. But the reality is that she's enhanced in Photoshop and she's reading from a script. Then they segregate people from these celebrities. You only get to see these people from a distance most of the time. very hard to get close or spend any real time with any type of celebrity. Because if you did, you'd find out that these are just normal people, just like you. They have blemishes, they have pimples, they have certain uncomfortable personality traits, the same as everybody. They're not as special as you think. By creating this celebrity status amongst people, by creating different levels of society based on monetary gain, who's got the most trinkets, the more trinkets you own, the higher you go on the rungs of the social ladder that's been constructed. This is all done to create division amongst people. And the trick is simply becoming aware of this division, aware of the mechanisms that have been put in place to control your way of thinking, to control the thinking of others, and control society, and thereby create the reality that we now see before us. This is the purpose of the three city-states, to control the consciousness of society and to steer the ship of state in the direction that the controlling hand wants it to go in. It becomes so clear to see this mechanism when you look, folks. You can see the monetary system, how it spreads out across the globe. You see the religious systems that have been put in place to create division and to make the people wait for a saviour rather than looking after themselves. And then you see the military machine that is going out and creating all this instability under the guise of keeping people safe from manufactured threats. It's easy to manufacture threats around the globe. You can turn any country into a threat once you've introduced a monetary system into that country, because control of the monetary system gives you the means by which to marginalise that country. By imposing a monetary system on that country, you can now control the flow of resources to and from that country. So this is how money works. Money is used to control population. Religion is used to control population through spiritual belief, and military, well, that speaks for itself. Once control of all the resources has been established, then the Earth's population will be reduced to a manageable level so that just enough people are kept alive to run the mechanism that is the corporation, that is the planet Earth. And this corporation's job will be to exploit every single resource the planet has got, but do it in a sustainable way so that these resources can be replenished. Because this is really the only way to take the fullest advantage of all the resources this planet has to offer. But eventually, if we allow it to go in this direction that this corporate body is pushing it, and allow society and the people to be locked down by this corporate system, this new world order that they are trying to implement, which is simply a corporate system, that path will eventually see the exploitation of every single resource the planet has to offer. If we allow things to continue in that direction, all this Earth will end up being eventually is a barren rock. So there are much better ways of doing things, because we could easily create a sustainable society. Because a lot of the reason for this is due to the control that our governments have imposed upon us. These governments have also suppressed technology in order to maintain this control. They have hidden all sorts of technologies from us, and they have stopped other technologies from ever being made freely available to the public as well, such as the work of Nikola Tesla, Victor Schauberger. These type of technologies could have freed humankind from debt. They could have freed the planet from pollution, but these systems were not allowed. And again, one really has to question why. One truly has to wonder whether it was just the love of money as the sole motivation for some of these actions. One really has to wonder how much money and how much power one controlling hand could seek to gain. After a while, it gets to a point where you begin to think, well, what's the difference? How much power can one person seek to acquire? But then again, this is simply how psychopaths work. This is simply how their minds work. But through all of this, and through discussing who the ruling hand may be, I still firmly believe, and something that I've tried to put across to everybody on all of these shows, is that more important than finding out exactly who or what the controlling hand is, more important than that is understanding the mechanisms that are used to create the control, to create the system, and to understand what holds the system up. Because that is how we dismantle the system of control. That is how we create a humanitarian-based society, is by understanding the mechanism that holds the system together. And that mechanism is us. We, the people, are the system. We are what's holding the system together.